A man spent years in a prison cell with no teacher, no internet, and no textbooks, and walked out speaking more fluent English than most college graduates. Here is exactly how he did it, and why his method destroys every excuse you have ever made about learning a language. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fluent English podcast. I am Emma.
And I am Alex. And today, Emma, I think this might be one of my favorite episodes we have ever done.
I was literally thinking the same thing when we were preparing for this. I kept stopping and rereading my notes because the story is just wow.
It is a wow kind of story. Okay, so before we get into the main topic, let us just say, as always, if you are learning English and you are listening to us, that is already the right move. You are doing the thing that actually works.
You are listening to real, natural English, not textbook English, not, hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you. Real conversation, which is exactly what we talk about today, actually.
Right, it ties in perfectly. So today, we are going to talk about a story and then break down the lessons from that story and then give you something practical you can actually use.
A framework, a real system, based on science.
Based on science, not based on, just watch more Netflix and you will magically become fluent.
I mean, Netflix can help, but only if you are intentional about it, which is the whole point of today.
Intentional. That is the word of the episode right there. Write it down if you're taking notes. Intentional. It means doing something on purpose, with focus, with a clear goal, not just going through the motions.
Great word. Okay, should we get into the story?
Let's get into the story.
So the story, or I should say the type of story, because this is not just one person, this is actually something that has happened multiple times in different places, involves prisoners, people who are in jail.
And I want to be careful here because I know that for some listeners, the word prisoner might be a little heavy, but stick with us because the lesson is not about crime or anything like that. The lesson is about learning under extreme conditions.
Extreme constraints. That is the key phrase.
Right. So picture this. A person is in a cell, small room. They have very limited contact with other people. They may have access to one book, maybe two, letters they can send or receive. That is basically it.
No phone, no internet, no YouTube, no podcasts, obviously. Sorry to us.
We would have been off the table entirely.
And yet, researchers and journalists who have documented these cases found that some prisoners came out of long sentences speaking with incredible vocabulary, precise grammar, and a level of articulation that most people who went to college could not match.
Articulation. Good word, Emma. Articulation means the ability to express your thoughts clearly and accurately. It is not just knowing the words, it is knowing how to use them.
Exactly. And what is really interesting is that some of these individuals were not native English speakers. Some came in with very basic English and came out with a level that shocked their parole officers, their lawyers, their families.
And nobody taught them. That is the part that gets me.
No teacher, no class, no certificate. Just a person, some limited materials, and time.
A lot of time, which, was unfortunately not optional for them. But the point is what they chose to do with that time.
Right. And there are documented examples. Malcolm X is one of the most famous. He is an American historical figure, a civil rights activist, and he has written very openly about how he taught himself to read and write properly while in prison. He copied the dictionary by hand, the entire dictionary.
Which sounds absolutely wild when you say it out loud.
It does. It sounds almost unbelievable, but here's what happened. He got so absorbed in words, in their meanings, their origins, the way they connected to each other, that he started reading voraciously. That word, voraciously, it means with great enthusiasm and appetite, like you cannot stop.
Like when you find a TV series that you cannot stop watching.
Exactly like that, but with books. And what Malcolm X described was that once he truly understood words at a deep level, not just their surface meaning, but their weight, their history, he could think more clearly. He could argue more effectively. He became one of the most powerful speakers in American history.
Which is extraordinary when you think about the starting conditions.
No resources, no teacher, deep limitation. And yet, one of the most powerful communicators of the 20th century.
So that is the case study. Not one single person necessarily, but a pattern. People with extreme limitations who used those limitations to their advantage.
And that word limitations, I want to sit with it for a second. Normally we think of limitations as bad, as something to overcome or get around.
Right. Like if I said, I only have 10 minutes to cook dinner, that sounds like a problem.
But what if the limitation actually forced you to cook better because you had to be efficient, focused, precise?
That is exactly what happened with language learning in these cases. The limitation became the method.
So let us talk about what researchers and educators call the constraint method. Constraint means limit. A constraint is something that restricts what you can do.
And the constraint method in the context of learning is this idea. When you only have one resource, you are forced to extract everything from it. You go deep instead of going wide.
Deep versus wide. I love that contrast. Most of us, when we are learning English, go wide. We listen to a podcast one day, then we watch a show, then we read an article, then we download an app, then we find a new YouTube channel.
Constantly switching, constantly consuming something new.
And it feels productive, it feels like progress, because you're always doing something.
But is it actually working?
For most people, honestly, no. Or at least not as well as it could, because every time you switch to something new, your brain has to reset. You lose the depth.
Okay, let me give a really simple example. Imagine you're reading a paragraph in English. You read it once, you understand maybe 60% of it, and you move on. That's the wide approach.
Now imagine you read that same paragraph 10 times, 20 times. Each time you notice something you did not notice before. A word used in an unusual way, a grammar structure you have never seen, the rhythm of the sentences.
By the 50th time you read it, you know that paragraph. Not just the meaning, the texture of it.
The texture, that is a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you. I have been practicing.
And this is exactly what the prisoner scenario creates by force. When you have one book, you read it 100 times, and reading the same paragraph 100 times beats skimming 100 different articles every time.
Because depth creates mastery. Width just creates familiarity.
Oh, write that down. Depth creates mastery. Width just creates familiarity.
There is a real difference between being familiar with something and actually knowing it. Like, I am familiar with French. I've been studying it for a while now, actually.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Slowly. But I can recognize words, I understand some things, but I'm not fluent. And part of the reason is I jump around too much. One day Duolingo, one day a YouTube video, one day a podcast.
Width, not depth.
Width, not depth, exactly. And I feel it. I feel the lack of foundation.
And you know what's interesting? I was learning Spanish and I had the same experience. I would do a little bit here, a little bit there, and then I made a very deliberate choice to pick one Spanish TV show and just absolutely go deep on it. Same episodes again and again, pausing, rewinding, writing down phrases.
And?
It was slow in the beginning, tedious even, but after a few weeks, something clicked. My ear adjusted. I started hearing the language differently.
Because you went deep on one source instead of skimming 10.
Exactly. And that is the constraint method in practice. Not because I was forced to, but because I chose to impose the constraint on myself.
Which is actually harder than having it forced on you.
So much harder because you always have the temptation to switch.
Oh, there's a new podcast. Oh, this article looks good. Oh, this app just updated and has new features.
The noise is everywhere, and resisting it is a skill in itself.
Let us take a quick breath here and then move into the science, because there's real research behind all of this.
Okay, science time. And do not worry, we are going to keep it very clear. No complicated terminology. Well, some terminology, but we will explain it.
Because that is what we do.
That is literally what we do on this show. So there are 3 scientific concepts that explain exactly why the prisoner method works and why it is supported by language acquisition research. Language acquisition, by the way, is just the academic way of saying how people learn languages.
Number 1, spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition. This is a learning technique where you review information at increasing intervals over time. So instead of studying the same thing for 3 hours straight today, you study it for 30 minutes today, then again in 2 days, then again in a week, then again in a month.
And each time you come back to it, your brain is forced to retrieve it from memory. And that act of retrieval, of pulling the information back up, that is what strengthens the memory.
It is called the testing effect, or retrieval practice in research, and it is one of the most well-proven findings in learning science. It is not a theory. It has been replicated in hundreds of studies.
And when you're in a cell with one book, you are doing spaced repetition automatically. Because you read chapter 1 today, you will read it again tomorrow and the day after.
You are repeating with space in between, without even trying to do it scientifically.
The constraint enforces the science.
Beautifully said. Number 2, deep processing.
Deep processing is the idea that the more you think about a piece of information, the better you remember it. Not just, I saw this word, but I saw this word, I thought about what it means, I thought about when you would use it, I thought about a sentence with it, I wrote it down, I said it out loud.
The more mental effort you put into processing something, the more deeply it is encoded in your memory. This is called the levels of processing model, and it was introduced by psychologists Craik and Lockhart back in the 1970s. It has held up remarkably well since then.
And again, the constraint enforces this. When you only have one paragraph to work with, you naturally start processing it more deeply. Because what else are you going to do?
Right. You cannot just scroll to the next thing.
There is no next thing. You sit with what you have and you go deeper.
Number 3, forced output.
This one is huge for language learners specifically. Most people focus almost entirely on input. Listening, reading, absorbing. And input is important, but output is where the real learning happens.
Output means producing the language yourself, speaking, writing. And what did prisoners have in many of these documented cases?
Letters.
Letters. The ability to write to family, to lawyers, to friends. And writing a letter is pure forced output. You cannot stay passive. You have to choose words. You have to construct sentences. You have to think about what you were saying and how you were saying it.
And when writing is your only way to connect with people you care about, you are incredibly motivated to do it well.
Motivated. That is such a key word. Motivation shapes everything. And the motivation in this case was not, I want to score well on a test. It was, I want my mother to understand how I feel. I want my lawyer to take me seriously. I want to be heard.
Real human motivation, not artificial motivation.
And research on language acquisition consistently shows that output, especially written output, accelerates learning in a way that pure input cannot match. Because when you write, you notice gaps, things you want to say but cannot. And that noticing, that feeling of, I do not know how to say this, is actually the beginning of learning.
The academic term for that is noticing the gap, and it has been central to language acquisition theory for decades.
So to summarize the 3, spaced repetition, which means reviewing the same material over time, deep processing, which means thinking hard about what you are learning, and forced output, which means actually using the language to communicate something real.
All 3 happen naturally when you have extreme constraints, and all 3 can be replicated intentionally even without constraints.
Even with a phone full of podcasts and apps and shows, you can still choose to apply these principles.
Which brings us to the practical part.
Okay, this is the part I am most excited about, because this is where you take everything we just talked about and turn it into something you can actually do, starting today.
Starting today, not someday, today.
The framework is simple. One source, go impossibly deep.
One source, that is it. You pick one English resource and you commit to it at a level most people would consider excessive.
And it could be anything. A podcast, a book, a TV show, a movie, a set of speeches, one YouTube channel, one thing.
But, and this is critical, it has to be a source you can return to repeatedly. So a live news broadcast is not ideal because it is always new content. You cannot reread yesterday's news 100 times.
Pick something stable. A book is perfect. A podcast episode, like one single episode, is perfect. A movie you can watch over and over is perfect.
And here's the key question to ask yourself. Can I go deeper on this? If the answer is yes, it is the right source. If you feel like you already got everything out of it after one pass, it might be too easy. Or it might be that you have not tried hard enough.
Let us walk through what going impossibly deep actually looks like. Step 1, consume it normally. Just read, watch, or listen like you normally would. Get the general understanding.
Step 2, go back and focus on one small section. Not the whole thing. A paragraph, a 2-minute clip, one scene.
Step 3, for that section, do all 3 things we talked about. Spaced repetition, come back to it multiple times across multiple days. Deep processing, ask yourself, what does this word mean exactly? Why did they use this word and not a different one? What is the grammar structure here? And forced output. Write a sentence using something you learned from that section, or say it out loud, or explain it to someone.
And then move on to the next small section, slowly. Patiently.
Patience is the hardest part because we live in a world that rewards speed. More content, faster consumption, always moving.
But language is not built in speed. Language is built in depth.
So here is a really concrete example. Let us say you choose this podcast, this episode, as your one source.
Great choice, by the way.
Obviously. So you listen to it once all the way through. Then you come back and listen to just the first 5 minutes. You pause every time you hear a word or phrase you are not sure about. You look it up, you say it out loud, you write it in a sentence.
Then you listen to those 5 minutes again, without pausing this time, and notice how much more you understand now.
Then in 2 days, you come back and listen again, and you'll notice things you did not notice the first time. A rhythm, a joke, a subtle meaning.
That is spaced repetition happening. That is deep processing. And if you write down 3 new phrases you heard and use them in a text message to someone, that is forced output.
One source, 3 methods, consistently applied. That's the whole system.
And I want to address something that some of you might be thinking, which is, but what if I get bored? What if I already understand everything?
2 answers. First, if you already understand everything, you chose too easy a source. Go harder. Pick something at a level just above your current comfort zone.
Second, boredom during deep work is normal. It is actually a sign that you are doing real work. Easy things do not feel boring. Easy things feel effortless, and effortless does not build skill.
The discomfort of going deep on something is the feeling of your brain forming new connections. It is uncomfortable in the same way a workout is uncomfortable.
And just like working out, you get stronger from the discomfort, not from avoiding it.
There is one more thing I want to add to the practical framework, and that is the concept of meaningful output. So we said forced output, which sounds a little harsh. Let me soften that slightly and say, make your output meaningful.
Do not just write sentences for the sake of writing sentences. Write something you actually care about. A message to a friend, a journal entry about your day, a review of a movie you watched, a letter to someone you miss.
When the content matters to you emotionally, your brain encodes the language around it much more deeply because emotion and memory are deeply linked. Things we care about, we remember better.
And that is also why the prisoner method works so powerfully. The letters were not homework. They were genuine human connection. They mattered.
Make your output matter, even in small ways. Write something real. Say something real, not just exercises for the sake of exercises.
Okay, I think that is a pretty complete framework. One source, spaced repetition, come back to it over time, deep processing, think hard about what it means, forced output, use what you learned to say something real.
And do it consistently, every day if possible. Even 15 minutes a day of deep, intentional practice beats 2 hours of scattered, passive consumption.
Let's do a quick vocabulary recap because we used a lot of great words today and I want to make sure everyone has them.
Perfect. Let me go first. Voraciously. We used this word when we talked about Malcolm X and how he read. Voraciously means with great enthusiasm and energy, like you cannot stop. She read voraciously.
Articulation. This means the ability to express your thoughts clearly and precisely. His articulation impressed everyone in the room.
Constraint. A limitation or restriction. Working under a time constraint makes you more focused.
Acquisition, the process of getting or learning something. In our context, language acquisition is how people learn languages. Second language acquisition is a huge field of research.
Retrieval, the act of getting something back. We used it in the context of memory, pulling information back out of your brain. Retrieval practice strengthens long-term memory.
Voraciously, articulation, constraint, acquisition, retrieval. 5 great words from today.
And if you are following our framework, here is your assignment. Take one of those 5 words and write a real sentence with it. Something that means something to you, not just, the dog runs voraciously.
Although I do want to see that dog.
Write something real, a memory, a feeling, a plan, and use the word in it.
That is your forced output for today.
Okay, I want to ask you something, Alex, just, between us before we wrap up.
Sure, go for it.
When you heard the story and this framework, did it make you think about your own French learning differently?
Honestly, yes, a lot. Because I've been doing exactly what we said not to do. I'm going wide. A little Duolingo, a French podcast sometimes, the occasional French movie, and I feel like I am spinning my wheels.
Spinning your wheels. Great idiom. For listeners, spinning your wheels means putting in effort without making real progress. Like a car stuck in mud. The wheels are turning, but you are not moving.
And I feel that. I put in time, but I do not feel like I am actually getting better at a deep level. After today, I'm going to pick one French thing and just commit to it completely.
What will you pick?
I think I'm going to pick one French film that I really love and just go obsessively deep on it. Watch it with French subtitles, write down phrases, repeat scenes, go full constraint mode.
I love that. Constraint mode.
Constraint mode. Maybe that's the name of my next phase of language learning.
And for me, my Spanish, I feel like I've actually been doing better recently since I committed to one show, but I want to add more output. That's my gap. I listen a lot, I do not write or speak enough.
Forced output is your missing piece.
Forced output is my missing piece. So I'm going to start keeping a Spanish journal. Short entries, even just 5 sentences a day, but real sentences about real things.
That's a great plan. And you know what? The fact that we're talking about our own language learning journeys is itself a form of output.
It is. We're using the language, processing it out loud, connecting it to real things in our lives.
This conversation is the method.
This whole podcast is the method. Okay, I think we should wrap up.
All right, let's bring it home. Today we talked about a man, or really a type of person, who learned extraordinary English with essentially nothing. No teacher, no internet, no structured classes, just extreme limitation, one resource, and deep intentional use of it.
We broke down why it worked using 3 scientifically supported methods: spaced repetition, deep processing, and forced output. And we gave you a simple framework you can use starting today. One source, go impossibly deep.
And I want to end with something. When you hear this story, it is easy to think, well, that is inspiring, but my situation is totally different. And yes, your situation is different. You have options that person never had.
More options than you could ever use, honestly.
But here's the thing. Options without intention are just noise. Having access to 1,000 resources does not make you a better English learner. Using one resource with real depth and real focus does.
You have more tools than he ever had.
The only question is whether you were using any of them with real intention.
That is the question to sit with today. Not, what should I add to my learning routine, but what am I already doing deeply enough to actually matter?
Maybe nothing needs to be added. Maybe something needs to be removed.
Depth over width, intention over consumption.
All right, that is episode done. Thank you so much for listening to Fluent English Podcast. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who is learning English. It genuinely makes a difference.
And if you want to go deep on this episode, you know what to do. Listen to it again. Pick out the words, write a sentence. Do the thing.
Do the thing.
We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.